Extract 1. I was 10 or 11 years old when I decided to learn swimming in the Y.M.C.A. pool. The river Yakima was dangerous, and my mother continually warned me against it. The pool was safe, it was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end, and while it was 9 feet deep at the other, the drop was gradual. Question 1. What motivated Douglas to choose the Y.M.C.A. pool over the Yakima River? Answer. His mother's warnings and the safer conditions of the pool influenced his decision. Question 2. What does this passage tell us about Douglas's mother? Answer. She was cautious and protective of her son's safety. Question 3. How does the author describe the safety of the Y.M.C.A. pool? Answer. He highlights the shallow end and gradual depth increase as safety features. Question 4. What does Douglas's age imply about his experience with swimming? Answer. He was inexperienced and still developing confidence in water. Question 5. What is the underlying theme hinted at in this extract? Answer. The contrast between safety and danger, and early choices shaping fear. Question 6. Evaluate the decision to learn swimming in a controlled environment. Answer. It reflects a rational approach to learning and facing challenges safely. Extract 2. As I hung by the water, a great force was pulling me down. Panic seized me. I had never felt such helplessness before. My lungs were ready to burst, my head was throbbing, but all I could do was flail my limbs in vain hope. Question 1. What physical sensations does Douglas experience in the water? Answer. He feels pressure, breathlessness, and a throbbing head. Question 2. How does this moment reveal the onset of trauma? Answer. The intense fear and helplessness mark the start of deep psychological impact. Question 3. What does flail my limbs in vain hope suggest? Answer. He struggled instinctively but ineffectively, underscoring desperation. Question 4. What literary device is used in lungs were ready to burst? Answer. It's hyperbole, emphasizing the severity of his distress. Question 5. How does panic contribute to his situation? Answer. Panic paralyzes him, worsening his inability to react logically. Question 6. Evaluate how this passage builds the theme of fear. Answer. It vividly conveys the overwhelming and paralyzing power of fear. Extract 3. I made a plan. When my feet hit the bottom, I would make a big jump, come to the surface like a cork, and lie flat and paddle to the edge. Question 1. What does this plan reflect about Douglas's mindset during crisis? Answer. Despite fear, he attempts a rational, hopeful strategy to survive. Question 2. Why is the comparison to a cork significant? Answer. It symbolizes his hope to rise effortlessly, showing childlike optimism. Question 3. How realistic was his plan, based on the context? Answer. It was overly simplistic given the intensity of panic and depth. Question 4. What does this reveal about his survival instinct? Answer. His instinct to survive motivates him to strategize despite terror. Question 5. What theme is reinforced through this self-devised plan? Answer. The clash between fear and the human will to survive. Question 6. Evaluate the effectiveness of such thought during emergencies. Answer. Planning can help, but fear often disrupts execution under pressure. Extract 4. All effort ceased. I relaxed. Even my legs felt limp, and a blackness swept over my brain. It wiped out fear, it wiped out terror. There was no panic. It was quiet and peaceful. Question 1. What change occurs in Douglas's emotional state here? Answer. Panic is replaced by calm as he surrenders to unconsciousness. Question 2. What does blackness swept over my brain symbolize? Answer. It represents losing consciousness and detachment from reality. Question 3. How does the tone of the passage shift? Answer. From desperation to eerie calm and resignation. Question 4. What deeper message does the contrast of terror and peace convey? Answer. That surrender sometimes feels like relief compared to enduring fear. Question 5. How is fear personified in this extract? Answer. Fear is shown as something that can be wiped out or removed. Question 6. Evaluate how this scene enhances the narrative's psychological depth. Answer: it explores the complex emotional layers experienced during life-threatening moments. Extract 5. I feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. A slight touch would send shivers down my spine. My legs would freeze, and my heart would pound. Question 1. What does this extract indicate about Douglas's post-trauma behavior? Answer: he developed intense, physical symptoms of fear around water. Question 2. What is the significance of shivers down my spine? Answer: it reflects involuntary fear responses and deep-rooted anxiety. Question 3. How does this reflect on the lasting effects of trauma? Answer: it shows that trauma can manifest in both mind and body long after the event. Question 4. What literary device is used in My Heart Would Pound? Answer: it's a metaphor for extreme anxiety. Question 5. How does this build empathy in the reader? Answer: it allows readers to feel the intensity of his phobia. Question 6. Evaluate the emotional impact of trauma as shown here. Answer: the extract captures how fear can dominate one's physical and mental state. Extract 6. The weight of the water caught me off guard. It was a silent, insidious force that seized me without warning, and for a moment, I was completely at its mercy. Question 1. How does the narrator describe the force of the water? Answer: the narrator describes it as silent and insidious, catching him by surprise. Question 2. What effect did the water's force have on the narrator? Answer: the force overwhelmed the narrator, leaving him helpless for a moment. Question 3. What does the term "at its mercy" suggest about the narrator's situation? Answer: it suggests the narrator had no control over the situation and was entirely vulnerable. Question 4. How does the water's silence contribute to the narrator's fear? Answer: the silence makes the force of the water more dangerous, as it strikes without warning. Question 5. What emotion does the narrator experience in this moment? Answer: the narrator experiences fear and helplessness, as he is at the mercy of the water. Question 6. How does this moment highlight the theme of human vulnerability? Answer: it emphasizes how powerless humans are when faced with nature's overwhelming and unpredictable forces. Extract 7. The force of water took me by surprise. It was a treacherous, silent, and relentless force. For a moment, I was completely at its mercy. Question 1. What surprise did the narrator experience in the water? Answer: the narrator was surprised by the silent and relentless force of the water. Question 2. How does the narrator describe the nature of the water's force? Answer: the narrator describes it as treacherous, silent, and relentless. Question 3. What was the narrator's emotional state at the moment? Answer: the narrator felt helpless, as he was at the mercy of the water. Question 4. Why is the water's force described as treacherous? Answer: it suggests that the water is deceitful, leading the narrator into danger without warning. Question 5. How does this moment reflect the narrator's fear? Answer: it highlights his vulnerability and fear of being overwhelmed by something beyond his control. Question 6. What can we infer about the narrator's understanding of nature's power? Answer: the narrator learns to respect the overpowering and unpredictable nature of the water. Extract 8. I sank slowly, almost deliberately, to the bottom. The water was now over my head, and I could feel the weight of it pressing against me. Question 1. What does the narrator's sinking symbolize? Answer: it symbolizes the growing sense of helplessness and inevitability. Question 2. How does the narrator describe his experience as he sinks? Answer: he describes it as slow and almost deliberate, indicating a feeling of powerlessness. Question 3. What is the significance of the water being over the narrator's head? Answer: it shows that the narrator has lost control and is now fully submerged in danger. Question 4. How does the weight of the water affect the narrator physically? Answer: it creates a sensation of pressure, heightening the narrator's sense of suffocation and fear. Question 5. What emotional state does the narrator experience during this moment? Answer: the narrator experiences fear, helplessness, and panic as he is overwhelmed by the water. Question 6. How does this moment add to the overall theme of the story? Answer: it reinforces the theme of human vulnerability in the face of powerful, uncontrollable natural forces. Extract 9. With a final desperate effort, I swung my arms upward and kicked my legs. I broke the surface with a gasp, filled with the sweet relief of air. Question 1. What action did the narrator take to save himself? Answer: the narrator made a desperate effort by swinging his arms and kicking his legs. Question 2. How does the narrator describe his reaction when breaking the surface of the water? Answer: he describes it as a gasp, filled with sweet relief, emphasizing his overwhelming need for air. Question 3. What does the narrator's action represent in terms of survival? Answer: it represents a last-ditch effort to survive and escape from imminent danger. Question 4. How does the narrator feel upon reaching the surface of the water? Answer: he feels intense relief and gratitude for the air, signifying his escape from the perilous situation. Question 5. What is the significance of the word desperate in this context? Answer: it highlights the urgency and intensity of the narrator's struggle to survive. Question 6. How does the narrator's experience relate to the theme of fear and survival? Answer: it underscores the extreme fear and desperation people experience when facing life-threatening situations. Extract 10. I had to decide, would I let the fear rule my life, or would I master it? The fear had kept me away from pools, rivers, and even playful splashes. But something deeper urged me on, not to prove anything to others, but to reclaim my peace and freedom from within. Question 1. What decision does the narrator face in this extract? Answer: he must choose between surrendering to fear or overcoming it to regain peace. Question 2. What does reclaim my peace and freedom imply here? Answer: it implies regaining control over his emotions and life by defeating his irrational fear. Question 3. How does this extract reflect the theme of personal courage? Answer: it shows internal struggle and the conscious choice to confront fear for self-liberation. Question 4. What can we infer about the narrator's motivation? Answer: he is driven by an inner need to feel whole and unafraid again, not external pressure. Question 5. Do you think the narrator's resolve is realistic? Why? Answer: yes, because true change often begins with a strong internal decision and self-awareness. Question 6. What role does introspection play in the narrator's journey? Answer: it helps him recognize fear's grip and initiates his decision to overcome it consciously. Extract 11. I swam for a while, but my strength was already drained. Every stroke seemed to take more effort, and I was sinking again. Question 1. What is the narrator's condition as he tries to swim? Answer: the narrator is exhausted, and his strength is drained, making it harder to swim. Question 2. How does the narrator describe the effort involved in swimming? Answer: he describes each stroke as requiring more effort, suggesting fatigue and weariness. Question 3. What is the significance of the narrator sinking again? Answer: it shows that despite his efforts, he is unable to overcome the force of the water due to his exhaustion. Question 4. How does this moment emphasize the narrator's struggle? Answer: it highlights the physical and emotional toll of his battle against the water's force. Question 5. Why does the narrator describe the experience as if the effort is draining? Answer: the narrator is expressing the exhausting nature of fighting against the water while feeling helpless. Question 6. What does this moment reveal about human resilience? Answer: it shows the limits of human strength when faced with powerful and uncontrollable forces. Extract 12. I could feel the terror rising in my chest, but I forced myself to focus, to keep moving, to not give in to panic. Question 1. What emotion does the narrator experience in this moment? Answer: the narrator experiences terror, a deep sense of fear. Question 2. How does the narrator manage his fear? Answer: he forces himself to focus and keep moving, despite the rising panic. Question 3. What does the narrator's decision to focus indicate about his character? Answer: it indicates determination and a desire to survive, showing mental resilience. Question 4. Why is the narrator trying to avoid panic? Answer: panic would impair his ability to think clearly and act effectively in a dangerous situation. Question 5. how does this moment reflect the theme of overcoming fear? Answer: it illustrates the narrator's conscious effort to push through his fear in order to survive. Question 6. What can we infer about the narrator's survival instincts? Answer: his focus on survival and control suggests strong survival instincts despite the overwhelming fear. Extract 13. My heart was pounding in my chest, my muscles were screaming with fatigue, and yet I kept going. There was no other choice. Question 1. What physical sensations does the narrator describe? Answer: the narrator describes a pounding heart and fatigued muscles, indicating extreme exhaustion. Question 2. Why does the narrator continue despite the pain and fatigue? Answer: he continues because he feels there is no other choice but to keep going. Question 3. How does the narrator's mindset impact his ability to keep going? Answer: his determination to survive pushes him to ignore his physical exhaustion and keep moving. Question 4. What role does mental fortitude play in the narrator's struggle? Answer: mental fortitude is crucial as it drives him to continue despite his body's signs of distress. Question 5. How does the idea of no other choice relate to the survival instinct? Answer: it reflects the narrator's realization that survival is his only option, reinforcing his instinct to fight through adversity. Question 6. What theme does this moment contribute to in the story? Answer: this moment contributes to the theme of perseverance and the will to survive against overwhelming odds. Extract 14. As the minutes stretched on, I began to wonder if I would ever make it out alive. The thought of drowning seemed more and more real with each passing moment. Question 1. What is the narrator's emotional state as time passes? Answer: the narrator becomes increasingly desperate and fearful, contemplating the possibility of drowning. Question 2. How does the narrator's perception of drowning evolve? Answer: initially distant, the thought of drowning becomes more real and imminent as time progresses. Question 3. What does the passage of time symbolize in this context? Answer: the passage of time intensifies the narrator's fear and sense of helplessness. Question 4. What effect does the thought of death have on the narrator? Answer: it deepens his fear and makes his struggle feel more futile and dire. Question 5. How does this moment enhance the theme of fear and death? Answer: it highlights the narrator's confrontation with the reality of death, increasing the tension and emotional weight of the story. Question 6. What can we infer about the narrator's mindset as the situation worsens? Answer: the narrator's mindset shifts from hope to despair as the possibility of drowning seems increasingly likely. Extract 15. Just as I was on the brink of giving up, I saw a figure on the shore. It was a lifeguard, rushing towards me. Question 1. What is the narrator's state of mind when he sees the figure on the shore? Answer: the narrator is on the brink of giving up, feeling hopeless, until he sees the lifeguard. Question 2. How does the appearance of the lifeguard change the narrator's perspective? Answer: the lifeguard's appearance instills a sense of hope, shifting the narrator's outlook from despair to relief. Question 3. Why is the narrator almost ready to give up? Answer: he is exhausted and overwhelmed by fear, feeling that survival is no longer possible. Question 4. How does the lifeguard symbolize hope in this moment? Answer: the lifeguard represents the possibility of rescue and survival, providing a lifeline when all seemed lost. Question 5. What does this moment suggest about the narrator's struggle? Answer: it suggests that even in the most dire situations, help can arrive unexpectedly, restoring hope. Question 6. How does this passage contribute to the story's theme of rescue and survival? Answer: it underscores the theme that survival can hinge on a sudden, unexpected intervention that rekindles hope. Thank you. Prepared by K. Rajendra Prasad.